Hello and welcome. We are back again today with an exciting topic of viewpoint on the Ask Krishna channel. The topic and concept of rebirth has been a subject of my research and inquiry for years now. Over time, I have looked into the spiritual aspects from the Gita and the Upanishads, and also the scientific aspects that are all centered around rebirth, or you could also say sometimes reincarnation. There's a lot written about rebirth and also its denial. When you look at some of the great scientific works by individuals who also consider themselves as atheists, like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, who wrote books like God Delusion and so many other classics, you cannot ignore the assertive points they make. You may disagree with them. However, having said, as we go deeper into the spiritual truths from the Gita and the Upanishads, you will realize why rebirth is not a topic of belief, but a matter of inquiry. And then you can come to your own conclusions and decide if there is truly rebirth or if there is randomness. When you get into a discussion with an individual like Sri Jaikrishna Nelamangala, a scholar of Vedanta, a Vedantin, the discussion becomes intellectual and constructive, and one that benefits the community to examine further. It is my privilege to be speaking with him today on this very essential and sensitive topic. We did a session earlier with Sri Nelamangala, and as you may know, he is known for his quest to go deeper into spiritual and philosophical topics like the Brahma Sutra, the Gita, and the Upanishads. He comes from a lineage that follows the traditions and teachings of Acharya Madhva, the proponent of the philosophy of duality, who has contributed with some amazing works. I'd like to remind that through these episodes of Viewpoint, my focus is to elicit a perspective and not necessarily something that's right or wrong. Or for that matter, it's not about even me agreeing or disagreeing with the viewpoint of the individual. My goal is to bring the best of the thoughts out and let you further contemplate and come to your own conclusions. At the end of the day, it is your own life. Ultimately, one has to live a life of faith, free from fear, but a life of common sense and rationality. Without further delay, please join me on this dialogue with Sri Jaikrishna Nelamangala. Sir, welcome, sir. Thank you again for taking time today to once again to spend some time for the benefit of the community. The last discussion we had really resonated with so many individuals. In fact, there were so many who came to me and were asking me, when is the next dialogue? So it really resonated because I think it really went into what happens from a contemporary standpoint. We combined both the spiritual aspect, the scriptural aspect, as well as daily life. So that really resonated very well. Personally, I'm very keen about today's topic. It's a complex topic. Not many talk about rebirth, Punarjanma. Not many talk about it. Not many go deep into it. And I think with your vast knowledge and with your experience, it is about getting the perspective from you about what it all means. As I always say, there is no right or wrong whenever it comes to this. Each individual's experience is their experience. So with that, I'll first hand it over to you for a quick intro and any invocation prayers, and then we'll get into the dialogue.
Sahana Vavatu Sahanam Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Shanti 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 Hari Om. Okay.
Om Tat Sat. Very good, sir. So let us start with this very complex topic, but let's try to make it simple as much as possible.
Yeah.
But again, I can understand that there will be some linkages that have be complex by nature. So it is what it is. What is? Let's start with this. Um, do you believe in rebirth, and why? Why even talk about rebirth? What is the problem with a one life scenario?
Well, let me, it's not about belief, as I've always stressed, it's about knowledge, right? And if you go to Gita, right, and knowledge in general comes only in three ways. That's it. One is perception, the second one is inference, and third one is shabda or verbal testimony. Now, this, any knowledge of anything, and because the rebirth or punarjanma that you are asking about, that knowledge also comes from these three, right? And so, in fact, Sri Krishna, right, in the Gita tells about this punarjanma, right? Just as dehinosmin yatha dehe komaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara prapti. That's how dehantara prapti is what you are calling punarjanma, right? So how do we know this? Let's take all the three means of knowledge. In fact, in the commentary, Sri Madhva says this knowledge of punarjanma comes from all the three, pratyaksha, anumana, and agama. And Sri Krishna in Yatha Dehe, because he is using a example of just as a youth and a old age happens to all of us, and it is in our experience in Pratyaksha, right? That belongs to Pratyaksha. So also Tatha Dehantara Prapti. So also there is Dehantara Prapti or Punarjanma. But then that part we don't get. How do we know this in perception? That is the question, isn't it? Because the other two we all have gone through. I used to be a young man. I used to be a middle-aged man. Now I am an old man. So that's the same jiva is seeing the bodily changes and growth and getting old and all that. It's happening to everybody. Nobody can deny this in Pratyaksha. Everybody agrees. But however, in the commentary, all my answers will be purely based on what is Grantastha, right? You got it, right? Whatever is actually written by great thinkers on this. Right?
For
I'm not
sure.
going to give you the social opinions. I'm not terribly interested in all that. Or if you Google, what do you get? Who knows? You get millions of pages, half of it is probably not right. So instead, let's go to the Mula commentaries and say what they say. Right?
Mhm.
That's what we need to learn from. Right? So here, Jayatirtha, in a work called Prameya Deepika, which is a commentary on Gita Bhashya, he says, Tatha Dehantara Prapti. You look at a child that is born, right? It seeks food, right? How does it know how to seek food? Because it's a clean slate. It doesn't know anything, right? So, well, the fact that it has learned from a previous body where it used to seek food, right? After all, everybody has to seek food, whether you're an animal or even a plant or even a human or any other. You all need food. And therefore, that's kind of continuing here. That's how, see, although nobody taught anything to it yet, day one of its birth, is already seeking food. And therefore, we know we can infer from that it is coming from another body where it learned all this. That's number one. But then there are people say, well, it's in our own, it is the nature of beings or living beings to seek food. Why should there be a previous birth for to learn anything? It's right. So this is what we call Swabhavavada technically. It belongs to Charvaka actually. And so in Charvaka, is what shall I say, is denounced by all Vedantins, right? Because he thinks, only Pratyaksha is Pramana, and Anumana and Agama are not Pramana and all that. He doesn't believe in a Atma that is different from body and all. So and therefore Vedanta in general is about Atmodhara, right? If there is no Atma, what is Atmodhara, right? So and therefore, Sri Madhva points out that for people who think it is Swabhava itself is doing, he also brings in Shruti. Shrutescha, he says. Observe Shruti. It is pointing out to the fact that after this body, Pretya, Sma, Loka, Amrita, Bhavanti, there are many, many statements like that in the Shruti. That is, after leaving this body, who goes? This body cannot go because he's already left it and we have disposed of the body. So there is something else that should sustain, that should be there after this body is destroyed. And that's what we have been calling Atma, Jivatma, soul, you can call it whatever, different people call it different things. Pratyagatma in technical, philosophy. That Atma is the one that kind of survives the body and it will go to the next loka, whatever it be, go to heaven or hell or, depending on where, what it did here and what it is destined to go and what type of soul it is. And it will spend its time there in the heaven and come back again, be born as something else. So there are a lot of Shruti statements like that, which all prove to the fact that there is a Punarjanma coming back to us. So there is Pratyaksha, there is inference, which you can use based on your own experience of becoming old in a body and leaving the body, yes, and the child that is born in some other, it used to be in another body. Actually, if you, in another bhashya called Aitareya bhashya, right, it's mentioned that Paramatma, right, who has no birth like we have, he he takes three births in a family. Like if you take the grandfather, father, son, in that usual family structure. So there are three times he is born. I won't go into all the details here, but I'm saying that's also there. So whenever we talk about Jivatma, right, we need to remember that he can only exist as a reflection or a pratibimba. Right? That is his only existence. There is no other existence for him. The question is, who is the bimba for him? For him to be pratibimba of what? Right? And therefore, Ajo Nitya Shashvato Yam Purana, all that comes from Kathopanishad, right? That's actually talking to the Nityatva of Paramatma, right? And the not being born, all the other characteristics, Shashvata, Shashvata Eka Prakara, all that belongs to Paramatma. And as a reflection, this Jivatma also gets those qualities because Paramatma is Nitya, Jiva is also Nitya as a reflection. So it works. So in the way we understand in philosophy is when you say something is Nitya as a Paratantra, right, or a dependent entity, it is Nitya Paratantra. Nitya means Nitya Paratantra. That's it, nothing more. Anadi means Anadi Paratantra, right? That's all. That's how we understand things. Now, given these facts, Punarjanma is given both in Pratyaksha and in inference and in Adi, and therefore is space of knowledge. It's not really anybody's belief.
I'm glad you brought it back full circle there. Now, also you started off with the Gita, and being a student of the Gita, clearly when Krishna talks about preparing for death in chapter 7 and 8. Um, so it absolutely makes sense on how you should live your life, even though he's
Uh-huh.
saying how you should prepare for death. But that still doesn't answer one question.
Uh-huh.
What is the purpose of rebirth?
well,
Like
see,
even
you
if we
need,
agree,
see, you cannot, in any one birth, right? You cannot live infinitely many years in any one birth because you're attached to something that is not permanent. Body is impermanent. It has to, you can't be born as an adult. You can only be born as a tiny embryo somewhere. That's where it all begins, right? So that a mom can actually hold you in her womb, and then eventually you come out having your legs and hands and everything intact, hopefully. And then you grow, and that body grows as you eat food. That food gets transformed into your body, and so you're a product of all the food you have been eating, and eventually it like every other motor that has to eventually stop working. The body also stops working because it's just a motor that's working. Your pump for the heart is a pump. How much can it pump infinitely for many years? No, it has its wear and tear, and eventually it will stop. And therefore the body, but then the purpose of even being born is to understand why you're being born. That is the purpose here. So, not everybody that are born will understand the purpose. All right. So, our goal, one of the goals, is to understand why you are here. Among all the things that you could have been born as, right? Why were you born as a human being? And that too in a good environment wherein your growth was easier or was possible, right? So all the facilities, whether you asked for it or not, have been already given to those lucky few, right? And being born to good parents, being born in an environment where there was shastra in the family, and where there is an opportunity for you to take it further, your own growth. All that is an environment, right? That was given to you. You didn't ask for it. Did you really ask for it? We didn't ask anything, for example, right? Did I ask, let me there be two eyes here? No, it was there when I was born. So the body, engineering behind the body, I didn't do that. I didn't engineer the body at all. Nor my mom, nor my dad, they were all as clueless as I am about why the body was built like this. If I were building it, I would probably ask for an eye in my back of my head because I can't see the back of my head, right? So I would probably have one eye there, one eye here. That would be my design. But then, hey, who cares about your design? That's because you don't get to do those, right? Whatever is given, we take. Fair enough. So, why I'm saying all this is so the environment in which you are given, you are all born in an environment with a set structure that is already decided by someone else. Now, why? What was the purpose? That is the philosophical question.
exactly.
Well, the not everybody even gets this question, right? Because they're happy that they're here, they enjoy life, go, who cares why we're here? And, once in a while they do look at the sky, wow, look at the sky, who made all this? Once in a while they do get what shall I say? The vastness of what we are into and the amount of knowledge that is out there, they're also gonna get exposed to that once in a while, and they understand their own limited understanding of what's out there, right? But if you come to Vedanta, the advantage is it doesn't take like 20 years for you to get there. It probably just take 2 hours to get there. Right? Vedanta, but the very first day puts you at the border of human comprehension about these things. Right? It says, "Yacheda Vedi tasasatyamasti, achedya Vedin mahati vinashti." It even scares you. It says, well, human beings, Yacheda Vedi, if you do make an attempt and understand this, the purpose, why you are here, etc., who put you here, why you are here, what is the purpose, and all that. If you make an attempt and understand, athasatyam asatyam means bhadram in the commentary. Bhadram means something good will happen. Mangala, what we call, right? Nachediha vedin. In case you don't, you lead the life of no inquiry into anything. Who am I? Why am I here? Kind of thing. Then Mahati Vinashtihi says there's a great doom ahead for you. So the Veda, scares you like that. In the sense, it is there to make people come to this path of knowledge, to understand. Of course, why we are here, we will fast forward some of the philosophical concepts in between and go to the end. We are here, according to Vedanta, because this soul, right, he needs to understand the bigger cause that has made everything possible. The one uncaused cause of all that needs to be discovered by this soul. Right? And I am said to be the pratibimba of that one cause of all. Right? And because of that, do you think one birth is enough? Not. It's not. You make an attempt, you start. Nehabhikramanastosti pratyavayo navidyate, Krishna says, isn't it? So you start somewhere. There is no U-turn here because it is the path of knowledge. Once you are into it, it's like classical music. Once you are into classical music, there is no way you can turn away and say, it's not. No, nobody has turned away like that. Similarly, knowledge of philosophy is like that. Once you are into that, the current will take you. It has taken great thinkers. We are also tiny mini trying to understand few things, so it will take us along with it. But if the source of all is infinite, there are infinite steps to understand that, then any one life has only finite number of steps. And that's why it is not enough. That's why you're born again, given better and better opportunities to get there. In fact, Sri Krishna says, I will make sure you will get that continuity. He says, Shuchinam Srimatam Grehe Yoga Brashto Abhijayate. So, in fact, we can't guarantee our own continuity. Only whoever put me in this birth, he can guarantee that. And that's what he's doing, Krishna, in the Gita.
Um, 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 there's a couple of things you said there, and I would like to take a little bit of a detour, but I'll come back to our main
Mhm.
topic. And the detour I'd like to take is more towards the scientific aspect.
Okay.
So if you, the two things, one is, as you said, if you were to design the body, you would put an eye on the back of your head.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a very valid question you brought up, because when you look at all these debates, whether it's from people like the atheists, whether it's from Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens and all these others, they do talk about that this body by nature is not being perfectly designed. There's so much imperfections in it, because if you had given this to a proper designer, there's modifications you would have done to really make this body better in many ways. So I just want to link to that. But the other aspect I also want to link is, if our purpose is to understand more and more, and learn and understand about the manifester, whoever
Mhm.
manifested us,
Mhm.
doesn't that point to why? I mean, why and what was it? It points to a very selfish manifester who really
No, it's
had this manifestation done only to understand that individual better. And I get it, that's where the independent dependent linkage comes. I get that point. But again, I'm linking it back to the scientific aspect where the science aspect says that just doesn't make any sense. Why would a manifester want to have this whole universal manifestation just to keep understanding more? And that's why they say the randomness theory is actually a better answer.
well, I can only give you the
The,
Vedanta answers.
correct, correct. That's why I
I'm not
wanted to bring it back to Vedanta. I wanted
Yeah,
to put the
because
science and bring
I'm
it
not
back.
terribly interested in knowing any of the other theories.
Yeah,
Um, well, we all, right? We means every soul, right? Without exception. We all start out in avidya or ajnana, or we this is all coming from Shruti again,
sure, sure, sure.
and therefore anadi vidyaya supto yada jiva prabudhyate, right? Anadi maya supto. So Veda says that in other words, we all start out in this anadi avidya or anadi darkness, so to say, right? And then eventually we make progress over many, many births. And progress in knowledge means, progress in the knowledge of the one source of all, right? That is the progress. And therefore, we are all given an opportunity, and we are not only created, there are other things that also have to happen. Please remember that. Now, it is not just because my body is designed one way or the other. That is just one small aspect of it. The bigger aspect of it is before you show up, there should have been somebody higher up who understood these things better than you for you to be taught. Right? Otherwise, there should be a teacher for you to learn from, right? So that teacher must have been taught by someone else. So, and so on, it goes on. So eventually, if you trace it all back, who should be the first teacher? Whoever created this should also be the first teacher, right? And then that's what we call Jnayam Gamyam Gurumschapi. See, in that, so Paramatma or the God concept we have in the Hinduism, he is the first teacher of all to begin with. Vedavyasa as Avatara, right? He was the teacher of all teachers here that we know. In this at least, Gurunam Guruhu. Guru, after all gurus, he is the Guru. Because everybody followed him. Gita,
Mhm.
all the bhashyas were written on Gita, Brahma Sutras, everybody, made their commentaries on Brahma Sutras. And those were all his works. Hello.
Mhm.
All Puranas, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, yeah, you name it, it was his. Right? That's why Veda Vyasa is Vedanta Krita, Veda Veda. etc. So, and therefore, that one source of all, what we have been calling as God, that put you here, also made other things. Like for example, all the commentators, the book we read, right? Somebody had to write that book for you to read. So he sent them first and made a system of student to teacher to student, that student becoming a teacher, and then the Guru Parampara, right? So he created all that for you, and everything, the platform was set. And then you were born. See the system? It's amazing when you really try to understand it from that perspective.
Sure.
It's not just about, getting a body. It's about the whole thing, the whole package. If you look at the whole thing, it's a perfect system, actually. If somebody tries to find an imperfection, that leads to an interesting question. If God is all perfect, Why did he create this imperfect world? Boom. Right? Maybe that may be a better question. So I can, talk about a little bit on that. Well, there again, from a philosophical point, right? This who is asking this question? Well, people who see, suffering, unnecessary suffering, according to them at least, who see, innocent people being, put to all kinds of, trouble, and whereas bad people enjoying life, right, and good people suffering, when they see an injustice, and one feels helpless and hopeless about all this, that is the guy who is asking. You say God is perfect, and look at the world he has created, and you say he created all this. Look at it. How can you say such a God is perfect that when you see so many imperfections here, right? So many injustices. When grandparents are alive, grandkids or they die for no reason, right? And so the grandparents feel so bad about the whole situation. Oh God, why you didn't take me instead of this child, right? So we see that.
Yeah.
And all this happens, right? And so, according to them, all these social injustices, right? What is this God doing in the middle of all this? Then again, if you come to the philosophical world, there are some who think this world itself is a transformation of God. God Himself has become this world. Right? There are some thinkers like that. For them, they cannot ask this question. Why? For them, God is perfect, but the world is not. So if world and God are, a transformation of one another, then if world is imperfect, God is also imperfect, which they can't accept.
Hmm.
And therefore, they cannot even ask this question, right? Ruled out. Then who is asking this? For them, there should be a God that is different from this world.
Hmm.
They can ask. Now there is a product called world. There is a creator called God, and He didn't make this world correctly. Those are the people. All right. Then this leads to an interesting concept called Vaishamya, right?
Hmm.
Vaishamya means Vishama, not partial, in other words. He has been very partial to few. He has kept them happy, he has given them everything, and there he has been unkind or cruel to some others. It's called Nairgranya, right? Because he unnecessarily he is making them suffer. So this partiality and cruelty, let's call it that way, Vaishamya and Nairgranya, right? This is actually a, if Paramatma is perfect, why do we say this? How can a God with Vaishamya and Nairgranya be perfect? So those are the questions. Well, Vedavyasa, who else, has taken this and has written an Adhikarana in the Brahma Sutras called Vaishamya Nairgranya Adhikarana. He has taken this itself as the subject for that. Very interesting Adhikarana, very pertinent to us, those of us who, see the world and also try to understand God as the cause of this world. And maybe, we can talk a few things from that Adhikarana
Hmm.
as we discuss. But that's the big picture. So unless, which means what? Instead of giving our own answers on any of these, questions, mundane or otherwise, the right thing to do is keep studying Shastra. Let the answers come to you. Don't chase the answers. Equal to MC squared. Just because by knowing that nobody becomes a physicist, right? You should know why it is not equal to MC cubed. If somebody can know that, right, then there is a chance for him to become a physicist. Right? Just by knowing the prameya or just by knowing that conclusion drawn by someone else, if you think you got it, no, you didn't. Right? So it's because, if someone else comes and questions it, you don't know what to do at that point. And therefore, knowledge, in the path of knowledge, we all get wrong answers, and that's okay. Who can claim that they never made a mistake in algebra? Can you claim? Nobody can claim. We all made our set of mistakes while learning. So also in Vedanta. You will get some wrong answers, and that's okay. It's part of learning. But as you make progress, hopefully it won't be making the same mistake. That's all.
I couldn't agree more. I could only say that unless you get the taste of this inquiry, you won't really appreciate what this all means.
Correct.
And I know to get there requires a lot of factors, as we discussed in the last session as well. But
Mhm.
that's when you get the taste. Really, you get that. One way that in all my discussions and even with the scientific folks, one way I've been able to at least, I wouldn't say compromise, but I get to a agreement stage is to say, forget the cause as the reason why we were put here.
Mhm.
Now that we are put here, what can we do?
Mhm.
Now that
Yeah.
we are put here, what can we do? And we see this universe around us, we see people around us, we see everything around us. What can we do today to help it out? And
And
what
there
can we do
again,
today to make it better?
yeah, there are three types of souls, and they give you different answers again. So a good soul, a satvika soul, right? We'll try to make it better, like you say, in the sense that he will. He's always positive about things because he sees the work of God everywhere. That's why he's positive. So even though everybody else is complaining about God, in the sense that how can a perfect God create this imperfect, all such questions, he tries to understand the work of God, the fact that the world is limited, right,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore imperfect. The world is imperfect because it's limited.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, and implies the all completeness of God, and that's its ground, and that's what we have been calling Brahman, the creator, right? And in Vedanta, and that's why the perfection is with God, but he deliberately makes the world imperfect because it is limited. You cannot have two swatantras, right? Anything that has limited is aswatantra, obviously. A aswatantra cannot be, imperfect. I mean, it cannot be perfect and unlimited. And therefore, the world is limited, and therefore it is imperfect. That's the answer. Correct philosophical answer. And
Mm-hmm.
so to seek the perfect, to seek what is complete. And that's why you're put in this imperfect world.
Would you agree that this whole imperfection or is also a relative thing, and that's where the aspect of desire and greed comes in? So, simple
Yeah, sure.
example.
I
Simple
mean, I
example.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just imperfection in the ordinary sense. There is even though the created entities are all there, they are all arranged in a definite order.
Hmm.
And we call it taratamya in our
Mm-hmm.
philosophical parlance. So there is a gradation of a higher and lower entities, and it's all given by Veda. It's not random at all. So it's given there. And indriyebhyah parakhyarthabhyascha param manah Kathopanishad, right? So it gives a manasastu para buddhir buddheratma mahan paraha mahatah param avyaktam avyaktat purushah paraha purushan aparam kinchit kashtha sa paragatihi. This is the Kathopanishad, which
Yeah.
is setting up the whole hierarchy, starting from the Vishaya, outside material objects of knowledge that are out there, to the Indriyas, which absorb this knowledge, to the mind, which gets it from Indriya. Indriyebhyah para kyartarthebhyascha param manah manasastu para buddhir Buddher Atma Mahan Paraha Mahatah Param Avyaktam Avyaktat. You see that hierarchy
Yeah.
is already created in the Veda. And therefore, this world is created with this hierarchy. That's why it's called Prapancha, by the way. Prapancho yadi vidyeta nivarteta na samshayah maya matramidam dvaitam advaitam paramarthatah. Veda says that. Prapancha, this pancha, uh, the five-fold differences that are there, it is nitya, it is always there. So this world is created with this Panchaveda. That's why it's called Prapancha. Right? So Panchavedatmakavada Prapancha. And you know what those five differences are. It's a
Yeah.
common knowledge.
One could also take that to be the five fundamental elements as well.
Pancha Mahabhuta. Well, Pancha Mahabhuta are all. Yeah, this word, Prapancho Yadi Well, let us get back to Shruti now.
Yeah.
Prapancho Yadi Vidyeta Nivarteta na samshaya. So what it says is, in case these five, whatever those five are,
Mm-hmm.
prapancho, yadi vidyeta, vidyeta means if it were created
Correct.
fresh,
Correct.
nivarteta, then it would also be destroyed at some time later. Maya matramidam dvaitam. But then dvaita means this Vedava Jagata that's out there. Maya matra means ichha matram prabho srishti. The same Shruti says that. Maya matramidam jagat, Maya matramidam dvaitam. Both of them have the same meaning actually, coming from the same Shruti. So, in other words, this Maya simply, it's the most misunderstood word in philosophy, right? This Maya. Because people, call it whatever they want to and call it Maya. Oh, it's all Maya. Ask them what Maya is. Some say it's not definable. Okay, so you can't even ask that question anymore. Well, if you study Veda, Veda has already defined it for you. You don't have to reinvent anything here. All you had to do is keep your study intact. Anyway, coming back, Maya and Icha, they have the same meaning. Maya matramidam dvaitam, Icha matram prabho srishti, both coming from the same Shruti, as I just said. So it means what? Icha is another name for, or Maya is another name for Icha. So Mahamayeti, Nirriti, Prakriti, Mohini, all these different names that are used in Vedanta, Tavecha Ananta Kathyate, says Srimadva. It is your Icha, Bhagavad desire of Paramatma that has all these different names. So Maya is a very well understood term in Madhva philosophy. Whereas other philosophies may have a lot of problems with that word. We don't have a problem at all. Mama Maya Duratyaya. So Krishna is already saying it. Right?
You brought the concept of gradation and hierarchy. Does it mean that rebirth is governed by destiny?
Yeah, I mean, you're nudged towards your destination. So, your destination, you have to go through the journey. While going through the journey, you pick up you clean yourself, basically, clean your knowledge, basically. And it's not going to happen one day because if God is infinite, the steps that lead to that God also must be infinite, right? And you can't take infinite steps in a finite body, any one finite body. That is the problem. And therefore, you are born again and again and again and again. So you need to do many, many, many times over. And the continuity for you to make progress is handled by the same God that put you in it to begin with and created a hierarchy of teachers and created all the other things that you needed to make your progress. Already platform set for you and then put you in the platform. And once you understand all this, wow, this world is good. So for a jnani, this world becomes a place of, because he sees the work of God in everything, right? Including his own life. And therefore, it's always a pleasure for him. There is no such thing as, because he only sees the work of God everywhere.
Absolutely. How do you link rebirth to other forms, other than a human rebirth to other forms?
Other forms, okay.
Could
Well,
be an animal, could
what
be.
happens is while you're making progress, because of your limitation or not understanding God correctly, you put things on your own. You think I am doing it, right? Duratma, Sri Krishna calls it Duratma, right? Things that he is doing, right? He means he, that kartrutva, bhranti, what we call kartrutva bhranti here, that is he himself is doing. There is no God. What is God? If God is doing everything, let him do something. Let me sit like this. Let him do. Yeah, all this nonsense talk that comes because of uh, such people, right? They're also there along with this. They're also given their platform. The platform is not different. It's the same world we are all born in. Now, because of that, if you do, in fact, Vedanta says even if you do one work, right, or action or karma without the knowledge of Sarvakartrutva of Paramatma, right,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to bind you.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, we do for in one birth, right? Say from the age of like 8 or 10 to 85, say, right? What happens before and after we will kind of ignore because you're gone senile probably after 85. So you're out of control. You don't know what you're doing. Similarly, before 8 or 10, you don't know what you're doing. So in between, where you do know what you're doing, so if you just take that, uh, about 80 years of your existence as a human. And if you have been doing knowingly or unknowingly, without the knowledge of God, you have been doing karma. We call it sakama, right? Where versus nishkama. Nishkama means
Yeah.
karma yoga in the Gita. And you need to do whatever you do as yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Please remember that. So Krishna is saying that is the expert way of doing. Kaushala is you don't do karma. Do karma yoga. You will be all right. But we have been doing just mere karma here, with or without knowing, and therefore that karma is going to bind us. It binds us so much so that for every birth we take, we accumulate enough to be born 14 more times. Okay? In those 14, each one year 14 more. So it is an exponential growth of accumulation of karma here, which is going to bind you and pull you down. Now, how do we get out of all this? So it's a mess. Now, in simple English. And therefore, that's where jnana comes into picture. So it doesn't matter how much you have accumulated, jnanagni dagda karmanam, like Gita says. So one spark of jnana is enough to burn many, many such that you have accumulated.
So a
Oh,
body.
to answer your question,
Yes, I was going to link
because
it
we
back.
have
Go ahead.
accumulated so much, so we are given a body like an animals, right? Animals, they don't have karma; they only have kriya, right? So a tiger, for example, right? It can kill a cow and eat it every day, but it doesn't accumulate any bad karma because of it. But as a human, even if I kick a cow with my foot, if I touch my foot to a cow, oh my God, I'm done, right? I accumulate so much of bad karma here, and therefore, at animals, they're born, they don't accumulate any because there is no such thing as karma for them. They only create. They only get rid of that. Their whatever they had accumulated in their previous births and so on. So it's one good opportunity to get rid of stuff. So as a born as a tree, born as a animal, but as a human being, you are accumulating and also getting rid of. Both are possible here. Getting rid of is possible because of jnana. That's the only escape gate we have. You can't get out of karma by doing more karma. No, you can only get rid of it by jnana. That's why Vedanta made jnana compulsory, right? Without jnana, no moksha. That's a given in Vedanta.
Am I understanding you correctly that we are not going to change lanes from a human to an animal based on our actions because that's a whole separate lane?
Oh yeah, sure. In fact, there are several Upanishads which even specify. For example, if you steal, you will become a fox, something like stealing cucumbers, something. There is the exact words it uses, things like that. So there are,
So
and
that
in
yeah.
many situations, being born as an animal may not be that bad, actually. Like just to give you one example, one of the greatest scholars of Dvaita Vedanta, right, Jaitirtha, right? He has written a work called Nyayasudha. Oh my God, it's a mind-boggling work. And that he was born as an ox before his birth as Jaitir. All right, he was Arjuna during the Mahabharata. That same soul, next it was born as an ox, right? Having seen Vishwarupa, right? And with all that, but still he was born as an ox. And in as an ox, right, he has the time to sit at one place and contemplate. Please remember, the war broke out as soon as Gita was taught. Where is the time to, sit down and do contemplation, right? And so, in the next birth, he was born as an ox, sits there and does, his bit of manana and gets it all, absorbs everything, and then he's born as Jayadeva the next. That's what we say. Okay, so
Okay.
being born an animal is not all bad. That's what I'm trying to say. Especially in America, pets, right? They are like, are you a dog mom or are you a dog owner? So you must have heard all this. So there you go.
So there is a potential. Again, I don't want to go deep into that because we have the background, but there is a potential for the lanes to cross. Is from a human to a an animal. There is a potential for that, and I think that the example was one. In this last segment, I would like to pivot a little bit different. I know you're a Vedantin, and that's exactly why I really enjoy these discussions with a Vedantin. But I want to bring it to a little bit of what happens on a day to day basis, which is the ritual aspect.
Uh
Um, when we look at the rituals that get performed, it almost seems like you're not only planning for your retirement, but you're also trying to leave a big portfolio for your next birth. Meaning, you're performing rituals to one to get everything in this life, but you're
huh.
also performing rituals for the subsequent lives as well.
Well,
What is your take on that? What's your take on that?
depends on what kind of rituals you're talking about. Can you give me one that you have in mind?
It could be anything. It could be somebody says, I'm doing a Mrityunjaya Homa as an example because
Oh,
I
okay, got
want
it.
to defeat this. Or I'm doing this other thing because I want my next life to be better. So it's a two-part question. What is the role of a ritual when it comes to rebirth? Number one.
Uh,
Second thing is, how should a spiritual seeker think about ritual for this current life, but also why rituals for subsequent lives?
well, rituals are, it's in general. I can talk about a religion. Let's call all that as religion, right? One is religion is it helps you develop discipline, and that's why you need it, especially as a in the growing up stages. Right? Religion is very much needed because If you don't have discipline, you can't get too far in life
Absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
any field. And
Yeah.
therefore, we all need it. So it's and so, but at some point, you have to go beyond religion. That's where philosophy comes into it. That's why
Correct.
it's there. I mean, there is a philosophy of religion. That's what it's called. So what happens in normally is a few bunch of religious people decide what philosophy should be. Actually, it should be the other way. It's a bunch of philosophers sitting together and decide what religion should be, right? It should have been the other way. It's like the school board, right? All this, the school board sits there and decide what kind of uniform should be prescribed for our school. Green, yeah, red or green and white or yellow and blue, checkers, should they wear a tie, not wear a tie? All that decided. That's religion, right? Everybody should follow that. That is decided by the school board sitting there. And therefore, that's exactly what happens here. So, like, you must have heard of Vadiraja, right? One of the greatest thinkers of the Madhva school. And during his time, he saw that there were some religious practices that were not really getting anybody anywhere, and so he corrected them. You needed a personality with such charisma to come and fix that religion. Okay, Rajini. Okay, so you need someone like a Vadiraja to come back and fix that religion because it's hard. If anybody says, you can do whatever, we're doing this, it's our tradition, it goes on. So, blindly following tradition. Coming back to all this Homa and other things we do, yeah, there are some things, Adidaiva, that the divinities, they need to be, we have to pay our share of this thing. And even in Krishna says, right, so there is a cycle here. It says, you please them and they will give back to you, and paraspara sambhuto, Ibro. You take care of them, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, let's both live happily. Kind of. That's basically what's happening there in all those. And then eventually all that, yeah, right, if you have the proper knowledge, right, who is the Mrityunjaya here? It's not the Mrityunjaya that you think, it's whoever created Mrityunjaya. That's what we are interested in. And therefore there's only one that receives all service. That's why he's Sarva Yajna Bhoktu.
Hmm.
So, Sarva Yajna Bhujaya Namaha is his
Hmm.
Madhva Ishavasi Bhashya. So he is the one that, although Krishna also claims that, right, in the Gita, you can worship anybody. Tasya tasya achalam shraddham tameva vidadamyaham. He says, I am the one putting their interest there. So he says.
I'll close this with two more things.
Mhm.
What is your view, since we are talking Upanishads, what is your view when we talk about, let's say, the last verse of Ishavasya,
Mhm.
Vayu Anila
Yeah.
Amritam
Oh,
Bhasmasantam Shariram
Jammayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukam
Kratosmara
satyam
Kratosmara. Yeah,
puja krato smara kritam
Kratosmara. Yeah.
smara
What is your view?
Agne
Yeah.
kratos smara. Oh, that's a very powerful mantra. It
Yeah.
repeats itself twice actually in the
Correct.
Upanishad because there is what we call anything with abhyasa is the tatparya in it. It wants you to get it, and that's why it's repeating it. I will give you the meaning that Raghavendra Tirtha has written on this.
Okay.
Alright. Krato Jnana Rupa Hare. Krato is Jnana Rupa Hare. Paramatma is Jnana Rupa. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Anandam Brahma. That's Jnana Rupa. Paramatma is Krato Jnana Rupa Hare. Number one. Krato Smara. Smara means whatever we have done as karma, right? Anugrahana, let's make it into jnana sadhana for me. That is what we are praying. Om Kratosma. Om is there in the mantra. Om Kratosmara Kritagam, what has been
Yeah.
performed. Actually, in the second level of knowledge, we understand we couldn't have done it ourselves anyway. He has made you to do, that's why you did it. Kritagam smara. Smara means, normally it translated as remember.
Correct.
But you can't translate like that here because there is no such thing as remember means what? Somebody should have forgotten for him to remember. Hello? If God forgets, then that Purnata is gone. Isn't it? He will become like us. That's why
Absolutely.
Raghavendra Tirtha says, Smara means anugrahana. Whatever karma that I have done, krita gum. Gum is added to include the all completeness. Isha was semidang. That gum is added to stress on the fact that it's not just this or that, all inclusive. That's gum is added there. Here also krita gum. It is not just one birth, all included here. All my karma that I have been doing, make it into jnana sadhana. Who can do that? Krato smara, kritagam smara, anugrahana. That is the correct way to understand.
Very good one. Very good one. Lastly, more of a personal question. If you were to be reborn, what would you like to be born as?
Oh yeah, I would well, um, I would like to be. Actually, I'm quite happy with the way I was given an opportunity in this world. If I'm given a similar one, I'll be quite happy. That's all I can.
Well
I
said.
mean, we should not ask anything that is beyond our capability. You can ask, but it's not going to help you, right? So one who understands all this, he will put you in the right spot for you, what is suitable for you. Anyway, so I'm not terribly worried about that. If he has done this much, he will continue to do that. The proof is right here in the pudding.
Correct.
We don't even have to look elsewhere.
Very well said. Very well said. Yes. I feel the same way. I keep saying I'm not this whole moksha concept. If it happens, it happens. But I would just want to continue on this journey of inquiry. That's all I
Exactly.
need. That's
Perfect.
all I need. So, very good. Thank you, sir. Again, one more time for an enlightening discussion. I know a lot of things going on, but thanks for making the time, and we'll look
Anytime.
forward to speaking with you again.
Sure.
Krishna.
Namaskar.